BBC News on September the 18th, 1970. Jimi Hendrix, regarded by millions as one of the most talented and original performers in modern pop music, is dead. He'd collapsed in a flat in West London. He was 27.
Jimi Hendrix, it goes without saying, changed the face of the earth.
Jimi Hendrix was made and died in Britain.
Because he was ours. You know, we felt like he was ours.
You know you are a cute little heartbreaker.
He was a black musician with a white audience, a symbol of protest who believed in the Vietnam War.
Cute little lovebreaker.
I can't express myself in any, conversation. I can't explain myself like this or that sometimes because, this doesn't come out like that.
In a basement room in West London, he'd taken barbiturates and amphetamines.
I saw him. Saw his hand and that beautiful turquoise ring that I gave him there. I said to her, it's okay, he's gone.
His friends were sad, but hardly surprised.
He was kind of talking about maybe not living that long, that the next time he went back to visit his family in Seattle, it would be in a pine box.
At his funeral, hard-faced men from the record industry stood next to fans who'd lost their god.
The business killed him.
He'd always been a misfit, a skeleton on whom others hung their dreams.
He's the highest person I think I've ever been around.
For his friends, it was a bizarre day.
I'm not saying he came from another planet, but maybe that too.
Those who knew him least had claimed him as their own. Five days after he was born, Jimi Hendrix was dumped at the home of a family friend.
And when my mother went to the door, and I happened to be right there with my mother, she opened the door and she asked Mrs. Jeter, what in the world is that? And she could see a little foot sticking out. And she brought Mrs. Jeter came in, and my mother took the baby because his little leg was sticking out and it was kind of blue, like very cold because it was snowing.
Not for the first time, his mother, Lucille, was drunk.
I don't know why she couldn't have kept him there, but she just got up and left, according to Mrs. Jeter at that time. He was little, long, scrawny looking.
His father, Al Hendrix, met Lucille just before World War II in Seattle.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you this important bulletin from the United Press. Flash, Washington. The White House announces Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Stay tuned for further developments.
When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, Al married the pregnant Lucille and went off to war. She was barely 16. His father, Al, came back from the war to claim his new son. But Lucille strayed. She'd show love and remorse, then vanish with some new man.
It was a forbidden subject to talk about his mother between us. So it was a code that we had, we just didn't talk about it. It wasn't something we talked about. We talked about anything else but that.
Growing up, Hendrix was lost in his own imagination. In the afternoon, he stole away to the movies.
We're going to crash!
The shyest person I had ever seen in my entire life, even to this day.
He imagined wizards who lived in trees. At school, he drew pictures of strange mythological beasts.
He'd like to draw horses, and he'd draw them with the big flowing manes and the nostrils wide open, and he'd draw wizards, you know, with the wand, and he was an excellent artist.
What kind of devils are these?
So in a way, Jimmy was in his own world.
He was in his own world.
A social worker said he wanted a guitar so badly it was damaging him psychologically.
My forces have you surrounded, Tarkov.
His father bought him one for $5.
We'd hear sounds on the cartoons, and he'd try to emulate them on his guitar. When we hear different songs with funny little sounds in them, he would just bring it back and say, let me try that, and he'd bend the strings and try to make those type of sounds.
At home, the electricity was cut off. Friends lent him clothes.
He basically had one gray sweater and shoes, but his shoes would always be turned on the side because, when you walk on your shoes so long on one side, they start leaning because the heel would slant, and so he had a hard time with shoes. He basically didn't have that many clothes.
Repeatedly, social workers tried to take Hendrix away from his father.
What
In the South, schools were being forcibly integrated. In Seattle, racism was more subtle. Hendrix School was a mix of white and black, Hispanic and Asian, the fairly rich and the very poor. He was amongst the poorest.
Would Jimmy admit how bad things were?
No.
He wouldn't just come out and tell you?
No.
Around girls, his odd clothes made him even shyer.
We were trying to figure out how he was going to kiss this girl that he had this crush on. So we tried to figure out, how do I tell him I'm not kissing him? So I had this piece of glass my grandmother had, and I would kiss the glass and said, now this is how you hold your mouth. I kissed the glass and said, now you try it. We'd roll on the floor laughing about it.
Hendrix's mother had cirrhosis of the liver, bridged and died.
We both were trying to escape whatever our personal hell was. Escape.
He joined the Rocking Kings, a shy bass player in an unknown band. At school, he was tongue-tied.
I think he felt like he was like an outsider, and like he had the weight sometimes of the world on his shoulders. He would frown and kind of shake his head.
Why he left school is unclear. He said it was because he made a lewd remark to a teacher. Soon after, he was caught in a stolen car and arrested. His lawyer said he was leaving to join the war with herself. For Hendrix, the South was an alien land. He played with Sam Cooke, Curtis Knight, and the Isley Brothers. He played left-handed with his teeth upside down behind his back. In Harlem, he won a talent contest at the famous Apollo Theater.
Sounding like 5 or 6 guitarists at once. I've heard multiple guitar players, but never really create the sound that he could by himself. How did he do it? I don't know.
He joined the outrageously camp Little Richard.
And then he began to start strumming the guitar with his cufflinks on. He used to play them like, and then he started ripping his guitar up and jumped down and started grinding it and just did a whole lot of, put it behind his back and, just went under this. He just got crazy.
But Hendrix was too flamboyant for Little Richard. Stranded in Harlem, he pawned his guitar. A black playwright wrote that Harlem in those days was like a festering black scar on the white man's indifference. Hendrix wrote home, big, raggedy city. Everything happening bad here. To the old bluesman of Harlem, the freaky Hendrix was a step too far.
And he would go and he would try to sit in with the musician. And most of them were closed doors because his playing was a little too advanced.
His idol was Bob Dylan.
Those guys were the ones that saying, well, he's distorting the blues.
Workless and often hungry, Hendrix moved downtown to Greenwich Village, once the haunt of Norman Mailer and Dylan Thomas. Its clubs and bars were shabby but chic. Here, he seemed far less of a freak.
No, I could never wear pork pie hats to fill space in news magazines.
He was taking the blues sound of Muddy Waters and all the other old-timers to another plateau. No one has done it before, and very few were bold enough to even attempt it.
He complained that he had to sleep in the street, with rats running over him and cockroaches stealing his last candy bar. It was 1966. The Beatles had already conquered America. Now the Rolling Stones were in New York. Their vast entourage included Linda Keith, the girlfriend of the Stones guitarist. One night she wandered into a club and heard Hendrix play.
The way his hands actually moved up and down the neck of the guitar was mesmerizing. He had the most amazing hands, and he had an amazing way of gripping the neck.
She called him over to say hello.
And then he came back to the house that night, and I had the greatest night.
She pleaded with record producers to go and hear him.
He was clearly a star. So strangely, such an odd-looking star.
Finally, Chaz Chandler, bass player with the Animals, agreed. He asked to be Hendrix's manager and got him a passport. On September the 23rd, 1966, they boarded Pan Am Flight 102 to London.
He had a change of trousers, a change of shirt, a jar of Valderma for his spots, and a bag of rollers. And that's about all he had.
Every day in the week I'm in the city. If I stay too long, the people try to pull me down.
Britain in the 60s was a strange land, deeply conservative, entirely bizarre. The night he arrived, Hendrix played at a club in London. His personal manager, Mike Jeffrey, wanted to cash in. Hendrix wanted the opposite, to stay in the country and move on musically. One day, a black limousine pulled up. Inside were Jeffrey and two men with bulging jackets.
You could see that the two men that were flanking Mike Jeffries, plus the driver, was armed. It was visible that they were armed. They were carrying guns.
Jeffrey took Hendrix to talk in a bedroom.
So after they went upstairs, the driver took a target out of the glove compartment of his limousine and put it on a tree and started firing his .38 into the tree.
The bullets echoed round the valley.
And that's meant to send a message to Jimmy.
It was obvious that it was meant to send a message.
A band of gypsies.
Jeffrey got his way. Hendrix went back to New York to play at a club connected with the mafia.
So they made him an offer he couldn't refuse?
Correct. I'm not sure it was financial either. Milk the cow until it dies, would be my phrase.
At a concert in New York with his new band of gypsies, he walked off stage. He said it was the end of a fairy tale.
Have you ever had a nervous breakdown?
Yeah, about 3 of them since I've been in this group, since I've been in this business,
Really? Gee.
4 months before his 28th birthday, Hendrix flew back to Seattle for the last time. He went to see Freddie May Gautier, whose family took him in when he was a few days old.
Did he seem happy?
No, Jimmy never seemed like he was happy to me. He would laugh and make jokes, but not genuine happiness. Like he was always perturbed about something.
All evening, Hendrix' minders kept phoning.
Was he frightened?
I think he was, from the way that he talked, because he'd have that worried look on him. You know, I don't know what they're after and what they want and things. I said, well, your money and time, and they keep you under that influence of drugs, then you do what they want you to do. Like he was under their spell.
A roadie put him on a plane to Hawaii, where he was shooting a film, a kind of psychedelic Easy Rider. Its director said he'd chosen his cast for their contacts on other planets.
This is one of probably the most psychedelic places on the planet at this time, where everybody that's dropped out from everywhere has dropped out to here. To him, that was a cosmic candy store.
It included a concert played at the foot of a volcano, Haleakala, the House of the Sun. There was talk of flying saucers in the crater. Some of the film crew were on LSD.
They were on their knees going, what is happening to me? And in town, they were going, we don't know what's happening. The electricity is going off and on, and people are like sighting saucers, and so the guys from Warner Brothers like falling off the towers, and it was incredible.
Hey, baby. He's taking you on a journey, as he calls it, across the Jupiter sands. Jimmy is a journey. He was a divine gift.
Well, she looked at me and smiled and looked at his face.
To his followers, Hendrix was now a psychedelic god.
Jimi Hendrix, it goes without saying, changed the face of the earth.
Then she says, I'm gonna spread around peace of mind.
And he was here to help evolve his brothers and sisters to another state of consciousness.
Hey, good, I'd like to come along.
You know, I'm not saying he came from another planet, you know, but maybe that too.
He was now their god, whether he liked it or not.
Was it real, all that?
No. I think it's, you know, that it's an illusion, you know.
August 1970. Times were changing. Hendrix flew on to the Isle of Wight Pop Festival.
It was the end of the love and peace era. People broke down the fences, there was violence. It had run its course, the love and peace bit. The clock had ticked on.
A Danish girlfriend was there.
We could feel the bad vibrations. I mean, it's hard to tell vibrations, but you could feel there was something nasty going on. And when Jimmy got on stage, they booed him because he didn't do what they expected him to do. You know, all his gimmicks, you know, with putting fire to the guitar and whatever he used to do.
Noel Redding's mother met him backstage.
There was some sort of feeling I had of worry about Jimmy, and I wrote to him afterwards to say if he needed any help, gave my telephone number and all this sort of thing. I just felt bothered.
On September the 2nd, 1970, the band arrived in Denmark. Hendrix had a cold. He felt too feverish to do his concert.
He was in a state, completely. I mean, he was staggering and mumbling and confused and didn't want to do it, and he was out of it.
Hendrix stopped the concert soon after it began.
I mean, like he was out in space, you know, look, the ship's there, spaceship there, and he didn't make sense, you know. And he also said, I've been dead a long time, and said some very funny things, and I think, I can't listen to this.
Meaning he wasn't being new anymore, he wasn't being creative anymore.
Yes.
The tour continued to the German island of Fehmarn for the Festival of Love and Peace. There was nothing peaceful about Fehmarn. Hell's Angels set fire to the organizer's office. Love and peace were fading. In the States, the Black Panthers were sneering at Hendrix because his audiences were white. Even the weather was awful.
Manic depression is capturing my soul.
I cannot help the weather, and he cannot play in this weather. I cannot help the rain. He will not play in the rain. I will not let him play in the rain. We will play tomorrow morning.
What time tomorrow morning?
If the weather is better, then we'll play around, say, 12 o'clock.
Next morning, the rain hit public. Many in the crowd were hostile. There were boos and shouts of, "Go home." It started to rain again. Fighting erupted close to the stage.
There's still a few people grasping at the love and peace thing, but it was kind of over.
Hendrix would be 28 in 2 months. He was lonely.
He did say, you know, if I don't have a wife and a child, you know, apart from the music, I don't think I'll live to be 28, because what else is there for me?
Next day at the Cumberland Hotel, London, Hendrix seemed cheerful enough in a BBC radio interview.
Music is getting too heavy. Like, I have this one little saying, when things get too heavy, just call me helium, the lightest known gas to man.
In fact, he was deeply troubled by disputes with his personal manager and a record producer.
I had like a dream, you know, like I dreamed that there was a witch with white hair standing at a stove stirring in a pot, a cauldron, you call it. And she said, "This is for Jimi."
On the afternoon of September the 15th, a German girlfriend, Monica Dannemann, drove Hendrix to a small hotel in West London where she was staying. On the night of the 17th, he was supposed to play at a nightclub with Sly Stone, but never showed up. In the Russell Hotel at dawn, Eric Burden says he and his girlfriend Elvinia Bridges got a call from Dannemann.
Saying, help, I can't wake Jimi up. And I'm thinking, what's anybody want to wake Jimi up for? You know, he never gets up till midday anyway. But she was frantic, and I told her to just walk him around, you know, coffee, splash some water in his face, you know.
Sometime later, Dannemann called again to say that Hendrix was getting worse.
He was throwing up, regurgitating in his sleep. I said, turn him over, turn him over. And I started to pull on my clothes and rush over to her place.
Burden says he told Dannemann to call an ambulance.
I can't get an ambulance, there's hashish in the place, and, you know, and I said, just forget that, just get an ambulance. And Elvinia was already on her way over there.
At some stage, while Hendrix lay dying, drugs were apparently taken out of the room and hidden in the garden of the hotel.
But at this point in time, I mean, I was going crazy. I already knew, I already felt that it was deadly.
An ambulance wasn't finally called until 11:18 a.m. They took him to Means.
A nurse came out and said that they thought they had saved him.
Could he have been saved?
No, I'm absolutely certain he couldn't have been saved, because certainly by the time I saw him, he wasn't savable.
The record showed he'd drowned in his own gastric fluid. Large amounts of wine oozed from his stomach and lungs, though oddly, there was little alcohol in his blood.
Then they came back and they said that he was gone. And I didn't believe them, because they had just said a few minutes ago that they thought they had him. So I insisted to see him. I saw his hand and that beautiful turquoise ring that I gave him there. I said to her, it's okay, he's gone.
In the flat, Burden found what he at first thought was a suicide note. Then he realized it was the words to a song.
Jimi Hendrix was always pushing the envelope. And if I took one hit of LSD, he always took 3 or 4. And he was always way out on the line. And unfortunately, this time, he fell off of it. And never, ever believed that he deliberately went out of his way to kill himself.
I was in New York, in my hotel room, and I got a phone call saying that Jimi Hendrix is dead. And then suddenly, like, there's all these women come to my room. There's about 3 of them, I think. And they wanted to commit suicide by jumping out of my window. And they're all hysterical. I'm sort of shocked, you know.
The body was sent home to Seattle.
He told me he wanted to be buried in England, which is the reason why I didn't go to the funeral. I have to respect his wishes above anybody else's. Because he was ours. You know, we felt like he was ours.
Angel came down from heaven yesterday. She stayed with me just long enough to rescue me.
But I think he was a tragic figure. The man who is looking for approval. He couldn't say no to anybody.
And he had superficial relationships all around him, but his family was his guitar.
Silver wings silhouetted against a child's sunrise.
At his funeral, his minders watched from the sidelines.
Were you angry that day?
Yeah, very. Because as kids in grade school, we all had our dreams, and Jimi made it all the way, but they just ruined him. They killed him.
The business killed him. And I can't put it any better.
He was a lovely guy, and I still think about him. All the time.
Seattle was no more gracious to Hendrix in death than it had been in life. It was nervous about putting up a monument to a man who took drugs. In the end, a space was found. A rock in the Seattle Zoo.
Rather an irony, isn't it, that he would wind up with a memorial in a zoo?
Yes. Yeah. Prophet has no honor in his own country.
Take a look around one of his old flats. Hendrix Night continues with Picture This here on BBC Two.